Good afternoon and welcome to our Lunchbox webinar series. We'd like to acknowledge our partner, the Lifetime Foundation, for sponsoring this webinar event and thank them for supporting the Chef Ann Foundation programs. Today's webinar will focus on Project Produce, Fruit and Veggie Grants for Schools, a grant program that we created to help schools increase kids' access to fresh fruits and vegetables and to provide nutrition education through fun lunchroom learning activities. Today on the line we have Chef Ann Foundation Program Officers, members of our team. We're going to help you walk through the application process. We also have some special guests from the St. Vrain Valley School District who have received 3 Project Produce grants. They're here to share the impact the Project Produce granting program had in their schools and how you can apply. So let's start with some introductions. Again, good afternoon. I'm Curry Rosado, and I'm the Programs Director at the Chef Ann Foundation. So I oversee all of the Chef Ann Foundation programs, including Project Produce. And before starting with the foundation, I was working with Chef Ann Cooper at the Boulder Valley School District as the School Food Project Program Manager. Today, running the webinar is Emily Miller, who is the Chef Ann Foundation's Marketing and Education Manager. And also, Emily Gallivan is with us, our Administrative and Programs Associate. Our special guests today are Shelly Allen and Sarah Harder. Shelly has been the Director of Nutrition and Warehouse Services for the St. Vrain Valley School District since 2007. Shelly's been a longtime advocate for sourcing locally produced foods, and under her leadership, the school meal program has been transformed to include produce from many local farmers. Shelly also serves as the immediate past president of the Colorado School Nutrition Association. She was appointed also to serve a 3-year term on the Colorado Farm to School Task Force in May of 2015. Welcome, Shelly. Sarah Harder is also with us today, and Sarah joined the St. Vrain Valley School District as the Wellness Coordinator at the beginning of the 2013-14 school year. In addition to the support she provides to the Nutrition Services Program, Sarah oversees 3 Project Produce grants, which you're going to hear about today, as well as many other district wellness initiatives, including their Trip Tracker program, which is part of their Safe Routes to School grant funding opportunity. Prior to her work with schools, Sarah worked in corporate communications and marketing, and she has her BA in public relations from the University of Northern Iowa. Welcome, Sarah. So we're all really excited to be here today, and we thank each of you for your time, taking time out of your busy day to join us. So before we get started today, here's our agenda. And before we get started, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping notes, including the Q&A section. We have a large group of participants today. We're really excited that you're here. And we are going to do our best to allow 15 minutes for questions after the presentation is over. Emily Miller and Emily Gallivan will be tracking the questions, and we'd like to encourage you to go ahead and put those questions and send them to us rather than waiting until the presentation is complete. To send your questions, you can simply type a question in the question and answer panel, the Q&A panel. Be sure to leave the recipient as all panelists, and then click send. And also today, if you have any technical questions or issues during the presentation, just type those concerns into the Q&A section as well, and we'll be happy to address them and take care of them for you. So today we're going to also talk about the Chef Ann Foundation. I'll give you an introduction to the Chef Ann Foundation. Of course, we'll be talking about Project Produce. You're going to get to hear about St. Vrain Valley School District's grant experience. We're going to take you through applying for a Project Produce grant, how to get started. We'll take a short tour of the lunchbox so you can see some marketing and education tools, and we'll have time for questions. Great. A little bit about the Chef Ann Foundation. We were founded in 2009 by Chef Ann Cooper, who is a pioneer in school food reform. The Chef Ann Foundation ensures that children across America have access to fresh, healthy food at school. And our expertise lies, we're based in Boulder, Colorado, and our expertise lies in our providing operational support and technical assistance as well as online resources to affect school food change. So by providing school communities, such as yours, with tools, training, resources, and funding through our grant program, we help schools create healthier food and redefine those lunchroom environments. To date, we've reached 6,600 schools and over 2.5 million students in 50 states. And we're committed to providing schools with funding through grant programs like Project Produce, and also with the tools and resources that you need through our resource called the Lunchbox that we'll look at later today at the end of the webinar. So let's go ahead and get started. Project Produce. Well, we all know the facts, and they're startling, that 1 in 3 children in this country are overweight or obese. And according to the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, we know some statistics, such as 60% of children don't eat enough fruit to meet daily recommendations, and 93% of those children don't eat enough vegetables. And we're all doing a lot of work to encourage increased consumption of fruit and vegetables in our lunchrooms. And we know the kids need that encouragement. They need education and repeated exposure to healthy fruits and vegetables so that they will consciously and consistently choose to eat them. So that's why the Chef Ann Foundation and our founding partner, Healthy Scoop, created Project Produce, which is a grant program designed to help create experiential nutrition education when and where students are making those food choices in the cafeteria. Through Project Produce activities, kids learn about healthy food, they smell the food, they taste the food, they touch the foods that they're learning about. This program truly does help expand kids' palates and encourage healthy eating habits in school and in out. And you're going to hear a lot more about that from our guests today. I'd like to thank our sponsors for the Project Produce program, which is Healthy Scoop, our founding sponsor, as well as the Walmart Foundation. We're so grateful and thank you for your support of Project Produce. We're also thankful to Earthbound Farms and the John G. Duncan Charitable Trust for their support of Project Produce. So before we hear from Shelley and Sarah, I want to share a few details about the Project Produce grant program. Schools, independent schools participating in the National School Lunch Program and school districts participating in the National School Lunch Program are eligible to apply. Funds of $2,500 per school are to be used to purchase fruits and vegetables that accompany a nutrition education program. We encourage local procurement when possible. It's a great opportunity to do that. And schools with 50% free and reduced lunch percentages or higher are encouraged to apply. However, the grant is for all schools. We are granting these grants on a rolling basis. And I also just wanted to remind everyone that these activities that you do as part of your Project Produce grant must include a parent outreach component that really helps foster that home-school connection. So with that, I am really excited to turn this program over to Shelley and Sarah so you can hear about some successful programs on the ground. Let's start with Shelley. Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you for inviting Safe Brain to this webinar. I'd like to talk a little bit about applying for the grant and what that entails. The first thing would be is good brainstorming. Identify who you want to impact in your school district and what types of activities have you done in allowing nutrition education to be going on in your cafeterias or in your classrooms that you haven't done before. And who do we have to look at for approval of this grant? Then meet with the school administration, and we request a short sit down with each of the administrators and make sure that they're on board with the grant. Let them know who will be responsible for what and how that might impact the lunch schedule or something special going on in a classroom before or after school. And we let them know that we'll handle everything in the grant process and in the activity. Then you want to meet with your parent volunteers. In order to keep the day as uninterrupted as possible, rely on parent volunteers to help execute the grant. Each school has a little different, is a little different. At one school, a parent volunteer might lead the charge, but in another school, the administration might lead the charge and designate volunteers for you. Ideally, you need about 4 volunteers per activity. And then you want to make sure that you're meeting with nutrition services. Since Sarah Harder, my school wellness coordinator, works directly for me, she was able to coordinate directly with me. But we really want to work with the kitchen staff to make sure that they know what they're supposed to be doing. And we want to make sure that we are working closely with the local farmers to ensure that the produce we get is handled properly. If we are using new vendors, what our policy is on bringing produce into the school district. And then how much time does it take to do an application? Ideally, it takes about 10 hours to brainstorm, to think of ideas, do the meetings, research, and write the grant. Writing the grant takes about 8 hours, as the questions are meant to be pretty short and to the point. And how was our experience applying for the grant? We applied for some grants that take months to work on. This grant did not take a lot of time, and it was fairly easy to do. The application is easy to go through, and as long as the projects are fun, then it makes the grant more go a little bit faster, because you can sort of build the excitement into the grant process.
Thanks, Shelly. As everyone already heard, my name is Sarah Harder, and I'm the School Wellness Coordinator for St. Vrain Valley School District. So now that you know a little bit more about the Project Produce grant, I want to tell you a little bit about the grants that we have here at St. Vrain. So the first school that Shelly thought of for this grant was Spark Discovery Preschool, which is located in Frederick, Colorado. Spark Discovery provides preschool families and children with a STEM-based curriculum. The school currently has 21 classrooms with 250 students between the ages of 3 and 4, so a pretty large preschool. So we believe that by providing a positive food experience, early childhood programs help children to develop an awareness of good nutrition and develop healthy eating habits for a lifetime. So as Shelly mentioned, we sat down and spoke with the school's principal, and she loved the idea of encouraging her students to eat more fruits and vegetables. But there were a few hurdles along the way. One requirement of this grant is that the produce has to be offered to all students, not just those that eat hot lunch. Well, due to the way that class schedules are set up for a preschool, very few students are actually in the building for lunch. So in order to meet the requirements, the principal agreed to give us class time to execute all of our events. And I know this is not typical for most cases, but we were very fortunate that the principal is a strong advocate of healthy eating. So I encourage you to at least ask. You never know what they might say. So now that you have an idea of the background of Spark, what were we going to do with so many preschoolers? So I took to the internet and started researching lesson plans on farm to table and gardening, movement activities, cooking with preschoolers, and every combination in between. I had no idea how we were going to get so many kids through a sampling event until I stumbled upon a really cool book that illustrates how a garden grows, and then the program just blossomed from there. So the first event took place in October to coincide with the Department of Agriculture's Colorado Proud School Meal Day, which takes place every fall. So every teacher was asked to recruit one parent volunteer to help out, and then all the students came into the cafeteria for 3 stations. So the first station included a group read of the book I mentioned above called Up, Down, and Around that focuses on vegetable gardening. Students learned that some vegetables grow up like corn or peppers, some vegetables grow down like carrots and potatoes, and some vegetables vine around and around like pumpkins or cucumbers. A second read-through then incorporated a growing dance where students acted out which way each vegetable grew. So they would jump up, squat down, or turn around and around. And then the station ended with a growing wall where students got to compare their height to that of growing vegetables. And you can actually see it there in the bottom left-hand picture. The second station featured fruit and vegetable samplings. Students were given 2 paper boats, each one featuring a variety of fresh fruits or vegetables. So students will have the opportunity to sample carrots, tomatoes, sugar snap peas, apples, blueberries, and raspberries. We did also offer a healthy dip to encourage the tasting, although we learned that it wasn't necessary and kids were willing to try it without that. So after each tasting, students were given simple scorecards to mark their favorites, a smiley face if they liked it or a frowny face if they didn't. And then the last station for the event was a chef station where students worked together to create a fresh chickpea pico de gallo salsa, and then students had the opportunity to sample it after. And then we sent the copies of the recipe home so that students could make it with their family. So the second event was our Jumping Juicer, which took place in March. This also had 3 stations. First, students participated in a jumping jam, movement break, hosted by a local Zumba instructor. Students learned new dances, how to act out different animals, the importance of keeping our hearts healthy, and how what we put in our bodies keep us moving all day. After the movement break, students were shown how easy and fun it was to make your own snack, and were shown how to make a quick and healthy smoothie. After they learned how to make them, students had the opportunity to then sample them. The first one was an all-fruit smoothie with lots of fresh fruits, watermelon, oranges, strawberries, and bananas. And the second one took a fun twist, and it was a fruit and veggie smoothie, which highlighted carrots and oranges. So although the students could definitely taste the carrots, quite a few students picked that one still as their favorite. Students were then also sent home with another card showing all of the recipes, as well as a great diagram on how they can build their own with their favorite ingredients. And the last initiative at Spark was a monthly Harvest of the Month sampling done through Classroom Snacks. So last year, Shelley in Nutrition Services started offering daily snacks to all preschool students as part of the CECFP program. We prepare 1 snack per month, especially for this grant, which highlights a different fruit or vegetable each month, and they are distributed over 2 days to all of the students. So far this year, we've highlighted apples, pumpkins, avocados, cranberries, mandarin oranges, beets, pea pods, celery, and next month we have strawberries. Parents are then sent a Harvest of the Month info sheet that consists of buying tips, serving suggestions, and recipe ideas. So what's next for Spark? Since the program has gone over so well, Spark has already started looking at ways to keep the work going next year. At the March Jumpin' Juicer event, we were lucky enough to have a Zumba instructor donate all of her time. Spark is now hoping to hire her to come back and work with the students on a more regular basis. In addition, their principal is looking at other ways, including through incorporating curriculum, to get movement into the classroom. And last, with the first year under their belt, Nutrition Services will be continuing the snack program next school year. So the next school we applied for was Flagstaff Academy, one of St. Vrain's charter schools located in Longmont. Flagstaff is a K-8 with 875 enrolled students. I know that sometimes the relationship between charters and districts can be a little bumpy, but I strongly recommend districts to find ways to partner with them when possible. They often have very involved parent base, and in Flagstaff's case, parents are actually required to volunteer a set number of hours each year, so we had a great pool of volunteers to pull from. Flagstaff is also very fortunate to have a geodome on campus, as you see in the picture, where students learn hands-on about the food we grow, as well as aquaponics, and they have a fabulous greenhouse manager. So Flagstaff's program started a little bit differently and just started on a random conversation with one of their parents. And when I met the greenhouse manager, she made a comment that she wished more students could take advantage of the salad bar that was offered through Hot Lunch. She said she simply just didn't grow enough produce in the dome so that every student could sample. My mind immediately went to the Project Produce Grant, and Harvest Days were born. The goal of this program was to find ways to tie what students are learning in the geodome with the food that is served in our cafeteria, and more specifically, to start marketing that salad bar as an a la carte option. So Flagstaff Harvest Days took place on 4 separate days, highlighting a different vegetable each time. The 4 seasonal produce samplings coincide with crops that the students were harvesting in the Dome, as well as what amazing farmers down the road at Olin Farms were harvesting at the time. So Olin Farms is actually located just less than a mile from Flagstaff, and their owners, Mark and Kenna, have children that attend the school, so it seems like a really natural partnership. So on the day of each event, all students were led through the harvest day before entering the cafeteria after recess. They have a commons area outside, so it was perfect to have them line up and hand out the samples. Plus, for most of our days, it was beautiful outside. January was a little cold. So as students enter the event, they sampled the harvest in its raw form first, followed by a prepared version. So in September, students had the opportunity to sample a large variety of cherry tomatoes, followed by an oven-roasted tomato on a whole wheat cracker. In November, students sampled medallion sliced hickory turnips, followed by a maple mash version. In January, students were given fresh from the snow-covered ground carrots, followed by an oven-roasted dill carrot medallion. And then lastly, in March, students got to sample fresh spinach and then a fresh baked spinach flatbread. I want to point out really quick, in the upper left-hand corner is Mark and Kenna from Olin Farms delivering the produce, and who were also on site every event talking to the kids, as well as below is our army of parent volunteers that were at every event. We honestly couldn't have served 875 students 2 samples and not take up a minute of lunch without them. So the great thing about Flagstaff's program is that it just keeps growing. Our parent volunteers keep finding really cool ways to keep the momentum. At our November Harvest Days, each student who sampled the harvest received an official Flagstaff Harvest Days, We Grow What We Eat bracelet. And then after every event, students were sent home with a bookmark which highlighted Olin Farms, a mini lesson on the produce, as well as the recipe of the prepared version so that parents could see what was taking place in the schools. We also had educational posters hung up through the cafeteria and through the school, and our classrooms have really started finding great ways to tie in with whatever we're highlighting. You can see that that classroom was reading The Great Big Turnip after November's Harvest Days. So what's next for Flagstaff? Well, to put it simply, a lot. In just a few weeks, Flagstaff will be hosting a mini farmers market day where we will celebrate our harvest days by distributing small farmers market bags of produce with a recipe to every child in the school. A special thank you email will go out, as well as a survey asking parents just to give us their feedback, how they plan to use the produce, and how they plan to start incorporating more fresh fruits and vegetables in their household. Should be a really fun way to close out our year. Also, there's been lots of discussions about how to make the end of the year picnic a healthy, eco-friendly event this year, and plans have already started for next school year. Due to the overwhelming support and buy-in from Flagstaff, Harvest Days will continue next year. The school is looking into funding options, but Nutrition Services and I will continue to prepare the food and support them. However, one thing will change. We're actually going to add 2 more days next year. And lastly, Flagstaff is really taking an active look at how they can find more ways to expand nutrition education throughout more content areas, not just through science. And they've also started a parent and student-led wellness committee. So the last school that we selected for our Project Produce grant was Old Columbine Alternative High School's Teen Parenting Program. So the Teen Parenting Program has been a part of St. Vrain for over 20 years. It's a career and technical education program that is designed to teach young parents the skills necessary to successfully parent a child and provide an on-site nursery so that parents can still go to school but yet visit their children. In a typical year, we have about 8 to 15 parents that participate in the class. This year, we actually had 15 parents, including both mothers and fathers. We had heard from the teen parenting teacher and the principal that they were seeing some unhealthy behaviors taking place with their teen parents. To give you just a couple of examples, we heard that some parents were giving their toddlers Cheetos as teethers. as well as giving Gatorade to their young toddlers instead of milk. And then lastly, we were hearing from the nursery that a lot of these kids were not willing to eat the healthy foods that they were serving because mom and dad would bring them snacks from the gas station instead. So the purpose of this project was to work with the teen parents on not only increasing their own fruit and vegetable consumption, but that of their children as well. So this is being accomplished by educating them on the importance of eating healthy, cooking, buying groceries on a budget, and staying active. So the first thing we wanted to focus on was teaching students how to make healthy food choices, while at the same time teaching them the skills necessary to prepare their own food. Since some of these teen parents are completely self-sufficient, it was an imperative that the lessons are not only healthy, but were practical and affordable for a teen parent. We immediately thought of Cooking Matters, who specializes in this very thing. For those of you who may not be familiar with Cooking Matters, they teach participants to shop smarter, use nutrition information to make healthier choices, and cook delicious, affordable meals. By partnering with them, we were able to tap into their expertise and additional volunteers. The Cooking Matters program was 6 weeks long and team taught by a volunteer chef and a volunteer nutrition educator. Each week, students were taken through a 2-hour class that taught them how to prepare a specific meal, food budgeting skills, and a nutrition education lesson. In addition, participants took home a bag of groceries at the end of every class to practice their skills and prepare a healthy meal for their families. When selecting the recipes, we tried really hard to pick foods that the students might consider a convenience food. So some of the recipes included turkey tacos, Chinese veggies and rice, chili with sweet potato fries, breakfast frittatas and yogurt parfaits, and black bean brownies, which sound kind of odd, but actually were delicious. So in addition to the classroom cooking and nutrition lessons, we took students to the grocery store for a tour that taught key shopping skills on how to purchase healthy ingredients for their family. The tour lasted about an hour and a half and taught students how to read food labels, compare unit prices, identify whole grains, and how to buy fresh fruits and vegetables in all of their forms on a budget. The class then ended with a $10 challenge where students were given the task of preparing a healthy meal for under $10. To make it just a little bit harder, they also had to have ingredients from at least 3 of the food groups. Once they had their groceries, students would check in with us, and if it passed the test, they were given the gift card to purchase the items. So what's next for the teen parenting program? So this grant we received a little bit later in the year, so we're actually still working on implementing it. We will be conducting a physical activity class coming up with St. Vrain's physical activity coordinator, who will teach the teen parents why staying active is important and how to do so with their child, including stroller workouts, yoga, and so forth. We will also be giving a class on food preservation around the farmer's market that will teach students how to purchase seasonal produce in larger quantities and then preserve it. It also gives us a great opportunity to talk a little bit more about baby food making. We showed them how to make applesauce and sweet potato baby food, but we'll dive into this topic a little bit further with the seasonal produce. Lastly, since the Cooking Matters class was received so well by staff and students, we will actually be conducting this class annually in the spring to ensure that every teen parent that comes through the program has the same opportunities for a healthy start. So I will now hand it back over to Shelley, who will go over some of the outcomes and lessons that we have learned from our project.
So first up is Spark. When we started at the CACFP snack program in August, we were hearing from the kitchen manager that students were not eating the fresh fruits and vegetables as much as we had hoped. Each day she would see some items sent back, hardly touched. Since starting the Project Produce Grant and through frequent exposure opportunities, students are now eating more fruits and vegetables, and the kitchen is seeing less food waste. Also, parents are now trusting the Nutrition Services program in providing students with healthy snacks each day. At Flagstaff Charter, support from the parents, teacher, and community has been incredible. While it may have started with one enthusiastic parent, their ability to spread the word about the program has brought tremendous support. Their use of social media has also brought a positive light on the district's farm-to-school efforts and informed parents of the local partnerships we have. Lastly, Flagstaff is a wonderful example of how parents can take the program and grow it into much more with the right support. Their school administration and staff really bought into the project and are continuing to find ways to keep it going next year. And lastly, the teen program. While watching the students in cooking portion of the class, it became very clear that while we teach them how to make healthy food choices, when they are completely self-sufficient, basic cooking skills are essential. Recipes need to be practical, easy for them to create, and include ingredients that can be used in multiple recipes to keep their costs low. However, it is incredible to watch the teen parents begin to actively look at the food they are eating and the food that they were serving their children and say how they need to do a better job. While reviewing the previous week's nutrition lessons, which included my plate, one student told us that she didn't realize how few veggies she was eating during the day, and she spent all last week trying to eat more. We also had a student tell us that she was teaching her mom about how ground turkey can be used instead of ground beef. And for most dishes, and when mom came home with ground turkey from the grocery store, the student was very happy. While we can't guarantee the Cheetos are completely gone and the Gatorade won't show up again, these classes have really gotten the students thinking about the little things that they can change. So tips for the future grant applications. Don't be scared or feel overwhelmed about the grant. Plan your event and then go back and work on the narrative. And don't do it alone. Pull in a lot of stakeholders, because the more ideas you can generate, the more enthusiasm we have for the grant to be happening in a school. And look at your parents, and look at your partners. They make this successful for you. And when dealing with administrators, be persistent, be positive, be concise, and let them know we're there to support them. And also let them know we'll do the work for them.
Great. Thank you so much, Shelley and Sarah, for sharing your creative ideas, your tips for future grantees. We are just so grateful for your sharing of that today. Just love the creative ideas, and the outcomes are really exciting to hear. Very inspirational. Thanks so much. So I know that we have many questions coming through, but at this point in our presentation, now this is Curry again, and what we would like to do is take you through how to apply for a Project Produce grant, where you can do that. So the first thing we'll do is, if you'll bear with me for a minute, I'm going to share. I'm going to get us out to the World Wide Web, and we are going to go to the lunchbox.org. And the lunchbox.org, as we mentioned, is the Chef Ann Foundation's toolkit of resources and that can help you with your school food operations. And also, we have marketing and education tools. But first, here on the lunchbox.org, under Programs and Grants, you will find so you go to Programs and to Grants, and you will find the Project Produce grant opportunity comes up first. Then what you'll do is, I've already gone over the details of the grants program, so we won't have to go over that again, but I invite you to visit here, and you'll scroll down the page to a beautiful green button that says Apply Now. We're getting there. So I'm going to click on Apply Now. And what this does is, when you click on that button, it takes you to the Chef Ann Foundation's grant portal. Some of you may already have created an account in this grant portal. For those of you that, and if you have an account, you'll simply log on and get into the system, which we'll do in a moment. If you have not yet created an account, we definitely encourage you to do that. And the way you will do that is, actually, it's quite simple. It takes less than 5 minutes. And some things to have in hand are, of course, information about your district, such as your address and your phone number and emails, but also be sure to have your school district tax identification number, as well as the email and phone number of your superintendent. So I'm going to, because I've already created an account, sign in and log on. And when I get into the system, it brings me to my dashboard. My school district is the example school district in Boulder, Colorado. And now that I'm on my dashboard, I would like to show you all here over on the left side of the screen. You'll just click on the Apply button. And the first grant opportunity that comes up is the Project Produce grant opportunity. Again, we've gone through the details, but at the bottom of the page, as you scroll down and learn after you've learned and read about the grant, you can click on Apply. This takes you right into the application. And because I want to save time for questions today, I'll just give you a general overview of the application. There are three main sections of the application. Parts 1 and 2, these are the sections that focus on your school district and your specific school site information. As a reminder, districts may apply for up to 10 schools, so that's $2,500 per grant and up to 10 schools. And the sections 1 and 2 are going to ask for information. What's the name of your school, the enrollment numbers, ADP, a little bit of information about your fruit and vegetable purchases, things like that. This just helps us get a good sense of your school food service operations, particularly around fruits and veggies. Part 3 in this application is where it's really the meat of the program. And I'm going to go there now. This is where the program information section, part 3. This is where you're going to tell us about your project. As Shelley mentioned, this is your narrative. So after you've planned your program, you'll come in here and you're going to tell us where is it happening. You're also going to give us a little bit of information about what programs, what nutrition education programs might be going on in your school already. But the project, you're going to have a project title, and the detail of your project is in this section right here. The who, what, when, where, how, all of those great details about your project will go in this section. Also in this third section, there's a budget spreadsheet that you can download and fill out. That just helps you estimate your costs, plan for your project and your purchases, and it's a good tracking tool for when you are done with your project. Great. So now that we've had a chance to look at the Project Produce application, I hope that you feel that, as Shelley mentioned, it's not too scary. I also just want to remind everyone that the Chef and Foundation team is here to answer any questions you might have, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. Now that you know you're going to apply, you might be thinking, what in the world am I going to do? We got some great ideas today from Shelley and from Sarah, but I also want to encourage you and remind you about the lunchbox, because the lunchbox is where we have the tips and tools and resources that you can download and use to help with your Project Produce activities. So we're going to go here now. We're back on the lunchbox, and as you enter the lunchbox, these resources are, thanks to our sponsors, are free and available to you, but we really want to invite you and encourage you to register on the lunchbox. Registration helps us, it helps us make sure these resources remain free. It gives us good data on who's visiting and what types of resources are most important and download it. So here you'll register, and then you can just click Submit. And now, since I'm a registered user already, I also wanted to let you know that when you register, you're able to download customizable tools that you can use, customize for your school district and print off and things like that. So in thinking about Project Produce activities and some of the resources that are here on the lunchbox, I want to invite you over to the Marketing and Education section. Specifically, we're going to scroll down to Lunchroom Education. That's what Project Produce is all about. And three sections, or many sections in here, are just some great tools. So I invite you to spend some time in the lunchbox, get to know it, particularly in this section as it relates to Project Produce. So the first area is Rainbow Days, and many of you may be familiar with Rainbow Days. These are days in which students are able to choose produce from the salad bar. They're encouraged to put 3 colors, make a rainbow, and eat it. And this section here, it's a fabulous lunchroom education program. It engages students in a non-threatening way. They get to make choices, and it's a great way to display a variety of fruits and vegetables for them to choose from. I just want to be sure and make you all aware of some tools with regards to planning your Rainbow Day, and invite you to scroll down to the Documents and Resources section. There's a Rainbow Day guide. We've already written letters for your administration, your parents. Please, please use these tools, customize them, and get them out into your school community. The other section that I want to take you to is on tastings. Tastings are a requirement of the Project Produce grant application. And we'll scroll up the page to the Tasting tab. Click on Tastings, and here, again, tools, resources, some ideas to get you started with planning your Project Produce tasting. Encourage you to look through this. Another section in here, in a really fun way, we heard a little bit about cooking and chef demonstrations. If you have a restaurateur in your community, maybe even a parent at your school, or your food services staff, invite them to perform a chef demonstration using fresh fruits and vegetables as part of your project. It's a great way for kids to be inspired, learn how, just skills, knife skills, and all kinds of skills of preparing food. They get to see it, they get to smell the food. Definitely, I would like to invite you to check out the chef demonstration section of the lunchbox. And finally, I'd like to take you to one last section before we go over to questions. Back up in the Marketing and Education tab, you'll go down to Posters and Signs. And in the Posters and Signs, we heard today some mention of handouts that Shelley and Sarah have been giving out, like what do they call it, bookmarks and things like that, and the bracelets. The Posters and Signs section of the lunchbox has customizable, downloadable tools for you, such as Rainbow Day stickers. And as you scroll down the page, you'll see quite a few farm to school related, Harvest of the Month related resources. So again, I invite you to peruse the section, use the resources. There's a Harvest of the Month Day sticker that you can customize, and there is a whole set of Harvest of the Month collector cards. We hope that you will visit the lunchbox, these sections and more, and know that these tools are here to make it easy for you to plan your Project Produce activities. Well, with that, we'll conclude our presentation, and we would like to ask questions. We'll enter into the question and answer section of the webinar.
Great. Well, first question is, I'm worried the application will take a lot of time and I'm not familiar with grant applications. Any tips?
Be organized. Make sure that you have all the stakeholders that you are going to impact in agreement to doing the grant. It doesn't take a lot of time to do this grant, so as long as you have your basic information and as you start, it doesn't take a lot to explain what you're going to do. The grant is fairly easy to move through.
Thank you, Shelley.
Okay, next question is, with only 20 minutes to eat lunch, this must be done fast. Tally boards, voting cards, what type of feedback collection have you found to be the most efficient from students? Our school is 5th through 8th grade, and we would like to keep a chart up in the cafeteria, possibly using colored voting cards with thumbs up and thumbs down. Thanks for your advice.
So you're right. Trying to collect data and do the samples in a 20-minute period is really tough. So I just recommend get as many volunteers as you can. Really work with your nutrition services kitchen staff so they have everything prepared ahead of time. That will free up a lot of volunteers. And then as far as getting feedback, using your volunteers to just kind of collect some qualitative data as they're working. But I think that chart is a great way for students if you maybe want to just hand them a sticker as they are sampling and then ask them to vote on their way out. Other things that we have done, we have parents who will just keep track of numbers for us. We also will count how many servings we had ahead of time so that we can just do simple math to find out how many we served. And then using things like Google Forms for students to do surveys or for parents to do surveys, and then asking teachers if maybe they would be willing to put something in a Friday folder or use maybe a minute of classroom time to get some additional feedback.
Great. And to that point, we have another really great question, which is, I can't do this alone. How do I get parents on board to help?
So ideally, start with your principal at your school, and then they will have resources. They'll have a list of those parents that participate in a lot of functions in the school. Also, use your PTOs. Those parents are already committed to supporting school activity. So start there first. If not, you'll also find that you'll get a lot of support from teachers and the staff in the school, because they like to see that energy in the school, and they like nutrition education to be taught or to be an example for our students. So.
Okay, great. So we have one question which I will take answering, and it's, will a recording of this webinar be available for future reference? And the answer is yes. A couple days after today, we will make available a recording, and we're going to email it out to you, and we're also going to have it live on our webinars page on the lunchbox. So we will let you know when that's ready, and you can have this for future reference. So, next question is, roughly how much money would be required for a taste test for 1,400 K through 8 students?
So that's a good question. It really depends on what you want to do with your grant, but obviously the grant's for $2,500. So work with your local farmers, work with nutrition services and the connections that they have with produce companies that might also source locally, and they'll be able to give you a better idea of what costs are.
Great. And then we do have one more question in the queue, so if anyone has other questions, please type them in now so we can have Sarah, Shelley, and Curry answer them for you. So our question is, our school doesn't partner with local farmers at this time. How do we work with them?
So use your local vendors. Identify from them where they're getting their local produce. Also, go to farmers markets. Go out to those areas and visit with those people that are selling in the farmers market. They will be very excited about helping to support your school programs.
Great ideas. Thank you, Shelley.
So that wraps up the questions we have currently in the queue. So if we want to just maybe wait one more minute for someone to finish typing up, we'll be wrapping up a bit early today.
Great. Well, thank you, Emily. And I definitely would like to encourage people to keep those questions coming. Thank you again for attending. And as we're waiting for some of those final questions to come through, if they might be out there, I wanted to also remind our attendees today that encourage you to continue to go back to the lunchbox. We are constantly here at the Chef Ann Foundation updating the marketing and education tools and the content on the lunchbox. And in fact, thanks to our support from the Walmart Foundation and Project Produce Grants, we are able to build out a best practices portal to really capture stories such as the ones that we've heard today, these best practices with regard to nutrition education in schools. So keep a lookout for that evolving and maturing content on the lunchbox. And as I mentioned earlier, as you are applying for Project Produce Grants, please feel free to reach out to the Chef Ann team. We are here to help and answer any questions that you have, and we really do enjoy hearing from our school districts. Great, and Emily has let us know that we don't have any more questions. So again, I just want to thank everyone who has attended the webinar today. Thank you so much for your time. We know your schedules are very busy. The webinar will be recorded, and I also just want to give a special thanks to the Chef Ann team who's been helping to run the webinar today, as well, and of course, to Shelley and Sarah. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing this excellent and incredibly inspiring information. We really appreciate it, and keep up the good work. Great. Thanks, everyone.